I was speaking to one of the people here actually the other day, and they asked me a very good question, which was, what is thought? Why? Thought can actually become a bit of a problem in the modern world. There's this thing called overthinking that pretty much everybody experiences at some point or another. There's all sorts of ways that thought can go wrong at a structural level. I'm not going to speak about the details of it. For example, black and white thinking is, you see, here's the thing, right? The psychology professions, philosophers, scientists seem to understand the difference between belief and thought. So here it is. It's self-evident. Belief is what we believe to be true, and that determines our actions. Thought isn't based on what we know to be true. Thought's another thing altogether. I would say probably that the origin of thought, so for example, any thought really, so the thought about thought, the origin of it is indefinable in the brain. What part of the brain or the body or our experience is it that initiates a thought? Who knows? Doesn't matter. Essentially, they're messages from the mind. Everybody seems to make this mistake, but when you think about it, you can realize it is a mistake. There's a huge difference between belief and thought. And you can see this. You have a belief, this is the right thing to do. There you go, there's a belief. This is the right thing to do, and you don't do that. You do the wrong thing. Okay. Deep down inside you, there's a model of the world which is making you do that thing. Yeah. You can cut it any way you like, but basically thought and belief are fundamentally different. If you want to know what someone believes, look at what they do. Sometimes that comes out as speech, but largely speech and thought, and there's not really any difference for many of us, is a process where the messages from the brain have been routed via the language centers. So why is there thought? For most of us, there's a voice in our heads, not for everyone. If you ask people about thought, you'll get everything from thoughts are visual, thoughts are an internal narrative, to thoughts are the symbols or the sense of something. And so everybody's thought is different. When we speak to someone, what we're doing is articulating our thoughts. That we have a lot of thoughts we don't articulate, fortunately. The reason for that is because we get in a lot of trouble if we said everything that we think. And the sort of trouble that you would get into is the sort of trouble someone gets into if they've got Tourette's, the sort of Tourette's that causes them to speak the unacceptable thoughts, often unacceptable thoughts. And so what's going on there, we all have these, they just get filtered out. There's a prefrontal cortex, it's a filter, it stops us getting in too much trouble as a rule. And that's why people get in a lot of trouble when they're drunk, because when someone gets drunk is it deactivates the prefrontal cortex. That's why you go down to Bromley High Street on a Saturday night, you've got people, mooning at passing cars and climbing lampposts and hitting each other and doing all sorts of things that they'll regret the following day. And so the suppression of the prefrontal cortex is very aptly known as, among other things, it's not as simple as this, but you can view it as filters. So what thought is the way it came about, I've got no doubt whatsoever. This is one of these things that science beats around the bush about, but it's fairly obvious, is that thought is a kind of side effect of language. The thing that differentiates human beings, we come up with all sorts of think differentiators. But ultimately, it's language. It's our ability to communicate. That's the key. And thought is a kind of side effect, because not only do we communicate with others, now we also communicate with ourselves. And I know that sounds of, are we all, is there all two me's? As a matter of fact, until just recently, that was pretty much accepted throughout all of history. So if you go back in the day, you read Pilgrim's Progress by John Bunyan, which was it's in the United Kingdom, but there was in England rather, but there were lots and lots of books like this all around the world when the printing press first arrived. And then prior to that, the Bible, the stories in the Bible. And essentially, there's the dark and the light, the good and the bad side, and the beast within, and the rational thinking me, and the pure me versus the evil me. So there's always been this acceptance that we can have an internal conversation and a lot of head scratching as to what's really going on there. But if you meditate your entire life, or at least for many decades, it kind of becomes obvious. And so what's happening is your awareness is becoming aware of thought. There's reason for that, because the big old complicated process, processing everything that we experience in there, and it has to find its way out in a useful way to be an influence on our choices. So if you take any drama, pick a drama, right? It's not hard to find a drama in the modern world. Yeah. Pick a drama, and there's all sorts of elements to it. There's the instinctual one, there's the intuitive one, there's the rational one, there's the good and evil side, there's the good guys, the bad guys, the heroes, the villains, da 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 da. And what we're trying to do is to make sense of all of this. And it comes out as thoughts. Yeah. I'll be doing a little bit more on this. This is just an initial foundation. Why do we think? There's not really. I mean, it's obvious that the thought is the communication. When we articulate our thoughts, that's language. When we don't articulate our thoughts, then we're aware of them all the same. So it's a very, very useful thing, but essentially it's communication. And essentially it's the diversified elements of the brain communicating with us in a single stream of information. Because some of these are not particularly smart. Human beings aren't actually particularly smart innately. Our intelligence exists within the community. It's, to be an intelligent person, you need to read a lot, you need to understand a lot. You don't just born an intelligent person and then have all of this knowledge. It's accumulated from somewhere. That's what education's all about. So we've got the knowledge. Subsequently, it's good to have this process that allows us to filter. If I identify with my thoughts, that's probably one of the least helpful things I can do. It's far more helpful to realize that you're the observer of the thoughts. Like the bus analogy, you're the driver of the bus, thoughts of the passengers, they get on for a while, they get off. You don't get to choose when they get on, don't get to choose when they get off. And your only option actually is to become familiar with them. And that's why we meditate. So let me just ring the meditation bell. underlying all of the practice is this process of becoming familiar and comfortable with thought. And we do that by not focusing on thought. It's almost as if we focus on everything else. We focus on the breath. We focus on sound. We focus on a visual single point. We focus on a repeated phrase in the mind. Really, when we're repeating the mantra, it's not thought. We've instigated a process in the brain where the brain repeats the mantra. And so we can connect to any of those. We can connect to thought by noticing it and then noting it. We can connect to emotion, most usefully through something like the neutral spot meditation. We can connect to sound. We can connect to breath. We can be aware of visual single point. There are many, many options. And noticing sound and the breath and awareness of the body have a lot of benefits. I almost invariably go for the breath, although sometimes I do like noticing sound. As the focus to draw me into the present moment. And the awareness of the body, the sense of presence within the body. This is Eckhart Tolle's actual inner body meditation. The inner body meditation is to become aware of the body as a whole. Allow into your awareness all of the sensory experience of the body. The balance, the comfort, the discomfort, where your arms and legs and head and body are, your level of tiredness, your relaxation or tension. The feelings that are gathered together into the sense of the body. And when we're aware of this, it's still a possibility that there's a sense of perceiving it from the outside. So, what we actually want to do is to move into all of these sensory experiences, settle down into our own body. And then we're able to notice the body, its periphery, the outside of the body, interacting with the environment. We can be aware that the feet are down there and they're in contact with the floor, and our hips and lower back and thighs and buttocks are in contact with the chair, whatever we happen to be sitting or lying on. And then there's the breath. And our skin is telling us how cool or warm it is. We're getting signals back about our balance. You have a sense of all of the objects around us, the geography of the space that we're in. There's the breath. And then there's tiredness and alertness and tension and relaxation and comfort and discomfort. And for the inner body meditation, what we're doing is positioning ourselves within the body. It doesn't matter where, wherever your mind chooses. Could be, we could be in the chest, we could be in the head, we could be in the belly, could be in the dantian. It doesn't make any difference. Once we've brought ourselves inwards and aware of the interactions with our environment being outside of us, there's an experience not dissimilar to the third eye meditation. It's a bit warmer. And from here, we can do things like checking in with the body and relaxing and being aware of the passage of time through the breath and sound and smells and tastes, what we can see and hear and thoughts and emotions. So just spend a few minutes exploring this sensory experience of now, not from any goal oriented perspective, just as an awareness exercise, awareness from being within our body, and aware of the body and aware of it in its environment. We'll practice this for the next 4 or 5 minutes. This is Eckhart Tolle's inner body meditation. So this is not a meditation with a focus on thought, but thought becomes part of the hubbub of the experience of the present moment. If thought becomes intense in any way, in this meditation, what we do is we retreat back into the body. We're tuning in to the sensory experience of now, which, without actively doing so, tunes out the chitter chatter of the mind. That's not its purpose, but it's a useful side effect. And so now let's explore the difference between these three sorts of soft focus meditation. So that was a soft focus, inner body focus. It's not directed in a single place. There's a sense of awareness that's soft and calm and relaxing for most of us most of the time. So let's move over to the third eye meditation, which is allowing ourselves to become aware of the space between the eyes, between the eyebrows. It's not a single point, it's that area. I suppose if we had to quantify it, it would be kind of the size of an egg or a golf ball or something like that. That area between the eyes, between the eyebrows. So long as this is comfortable for you, it's not everybody, not every meditation is for everyone all the time. But it's a useful exercise to explore them. We just leave our awareness there. There's no particular goal. Most of us, most of the time, it promotes calmness and relaxation. Now what we'll do is move over very gently, very slowly, very calmly to another soft focus meditation, which is open focus, which is an awareness. It's almost the flip side, as it were, of the inner body meditation. We're allowing ourselves to become aware of the space that's around us. Around about an arm's length away. So there's space above our heads, behind us, to either side, possibly beneath us, in front, behind. This is what we refer to as our personal space. So what we're doing is gently monitoring our personal space. No goals or expectations, not a desire to change anything. We just want to be aware of it. And now just let that bubble of awareness shrink down. Shrink, 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 less than an arm's length, just outside our body, shrinking down to the tiny movement of the belly rising and falling. Belly rising, belly falling. And while we're noticing the movement of the belly, we're also noticing the movement of sound moving through time.